All right, good evening, folks, and welcome back to Wilderness Wargaming. We're going to get back to Military Mondays after an unfortunate missing of it last week due to life and craziness. And we're going to do Top Gun Maverick today because I really like this movie. I actually liked it better than the first one. And the first one in 1986 was, at the time, and I loved that one. I think I loved it better than Star Wars even. It was amazing. It's one of those movies I can go back and watch over and over. And even my kids. I showed my daughter Top Gun, and she was like, "This is amazing." And I didn't think she'd be too into it. But I thought Top Gun Maverick was even better, mainly because I think that while there are obviously some dissimilarities from real life, namely that Tom Cruise is somehow a captain, an '06 equivalent to a colonel, and must have commanded an air wing and had major responsibilities, still acts like a little kid in some ways, which I don't like. But let's take a look at some of the more technical aspects of what's going on. Now, I am not a naval aviator, I'm not a naval officer, but I am a military officer, and I am originally a field artillery officer. And so I do know something about fire support, which includes airplanes and bombs and stuff like that. And I've just been around long enough and read enough and seen enough to kind of know when something is and isn't right. So let's go ahead and take a look. And we're going to start off here. We're not going to look at the beginning parts of the movie and the training sequences and all that, or the Dark Star. Very cool, but that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is this actual attack that's being conducted, and how does it relate to something like real life? Well, we'll start off by explaining what's going on here. For people, you may have seen the movie. Maybe if you didn't fully understand what's going on, is that they have a strike package of 4 F-18s. There's a fifth F-18, which is being flown by Hangman, who plays the movie's dickhead, basically, that's on the boat, essentially as a spare. Now, the whole justification for this is that it is some country out there of bad guys that we want to destroy their uranium facility. I believe it has something to do with nukes before it comes online. And it's down in this big pit, and they have to. It's very hard to attack. And they've got some magical localized GPS jamming, which I don't think is really a thing. Maybe it is, but it strikes me as somewhat far-fetched that you could jam our GPS system just in a local area. Maybe you can. I don't know. But that would be an obvious, if they could, that would be an obvious precaution to take, because lots of weapons that we use, lots of our long-range precision strike weapons are partially or completely guided by GPS. Things like the, what is that thing? Joint standoff weapon, I believe, is the JDAMs, the GPS-guided bombs. So what they're going to do is they're not going to use the F-35s. They're going to go in F-18s, which are a little bit older, plane designed in the late 1970s, early 1980s. These are actually Super Hornets, which is an enlarged version of the original F-18. It's about 20% bigger. And they're going to attack it with old-fashioned laser-guided bombs, because you can't jam a laser. Now, these are the F-18s, and let's take a look at how they're kitted out. So they have got this right. These weapons that you see under these bigger weapons you see underneath the wings with a front that looks like a lawn dart, that is a GBU, probably GBU 15 laser-guided bomb. The number refers basically, the 12, I think the GBU 12 is 500 pounds, and the 15 is I think 1,000 pounds. It might be 2,000. I'm not sure, but there's different ones. They all have the same laser guidance package, and that turns a generic iron bomb from World War II, general purpose bomb, into a guided weapon. And the way that they're doing it this is that one plane, which has a backseater, is going to target. The backseater will operate the targeting laser while the pilot flies the plane, and the other plane is the bomber and will actually drop the bombs. Now, targeting pods like that are a thing in real life. They're definitely used. I don't know that you have to, but it takes a lot of load off of the pilot who's dropping the bomb if he doesn't have to laze the target and drop the bomb. So I can see the reason for that. Now, I also know that part of the reason they came up with this was, and not using the F-35, which is more stealthy and could do the mission more easily, is that the F-35 does not come in a two-seat version. So there was no way to put the pilot in the plane and still have an actor sit in the back, because there is no back. See, Tom Cruise here, it looks like he's flying the plane, but he's actually not. He's in the back seat of FA-18F model, which is the two-seat model. There's an E model, is the one-seater. The A through D models, those are the smaller original Hornets. These are the Super Hornets. But this will definitely get the job done. A laser-guided bomb will pretty much hit the target exactly where the laser is. I've never guided a laser-guided bomb before, but I have shot a long time ago a laser-guided artillery shell called the Copperhead. When you laze the target, it will definitely hit exactly where you want to hit. Now they've also got their air-to-air missiles. Those are Sidewinder missiles there on the tips. Looks like each F-18 has an external fuel tank underneath its center line. This strikes me as an appropriate loadout because they have air-to-air weapons, they have the air-to-ground weapons they need, they have extra fuel. I don't know if it's optimal. You'd have to ask an actual fighter pilot or a strike plane or something like that. But there's nothing out of here where I'm like, where they've just slapped whatever on the F-18 and gone with it. Now the thing I do question just a little bit is I don't see the targeting pod on any of these planes. Maybe it is the plane on the right, underneath the right wing. The left wing is our left, the plane's right. That might be a target because it looks like it only has one bomb. And that would even kind of make sense to put a spare bomb on the lasing plane just in case. So starting off, that's pretty appropriate. They're ingressing at low level. That's obviously to avoid enemy radar. And what we're worried about is the enemy jets, and they have surface-to-air missiles. Now, the surface-to-air missiles we're going to take a look at in a minute. The jets, at the beginning of the movie, they explain that they have a variety of them, as well as some, about a dozen or so, I think, fifth-generation fighters. Su-57 Felons, which is Russia's supposedly F-22 equivalent. We're inside the, why can I suddenly not think of it? The E2 Hawkeye, which is, you've probably seen, it's a propeller-driven plane, and it has this big dish on the top, this rotating dish that sits on the top of the fuselage. This is a radar airplane. That dish is a gigantic radar, and this is the command and control aircraft. The usefulness of this is that it gets the radar way up in the air, or can see a lot further, and it also doesn't have to sit, the ships don't have to reveal where they are by lighting off their own radars when the E2 is operating. And this is a correct radar display here, as far as I know. It definitely has correct designators here for the fighters. See how they're a little circle? That's friendly. And then they have that little, you can barely see it, but a little line looking off to the northwest there. That is the velocity vector. The faster the plane's going, the longer that line's going to go. And this is what a standard combat information center display looks like. This one's on a plane, not on a ship, but that is correct. This is probably a real E2 screen.
Mr. Queen, decision is yours.
Copy.
Okay, decision is yours. Maverick is the commander. He's the strike commander here, so he is the one who's making the calls. This is actually something good. For once, it's making Maverick actually do something appropriate for his rank and not just act like an overgrown kid. All right, we're going to skip ahead just a minute.
Dagger attack.
Okay, he's making the call. He's coordinating. This is, okay, there's your Tomahawk side. Okay. So let's take a careful look at this. This is all very important. Okay, this is the Combat Information Center display. Now, this looks like something more modern because it isn't using those older symbols. These are more stylized symbols. So this may be something they made up for the movie. I'm not 100% sure, but it might just be a newer display. Now, if we zoom in, if we blow this up a little bit here. Okay, Dagger Flight Group, so it has the planes grouped together. Okay, now, if we look down here, see that Salvo 39B, 20 times BGM 109C. So they got that correct. The correct nomenclature for the Tomahawk, the BGM 109C, and it's listed as a salvo number. It came off of, I believe, CG-55 here. I think it was Leyte Gulf. I forgot to look up which one is which, but I'm pretty sure 55 is the USS Leyte Gulf Aegis cruiser. Now, the Aegis cruiser can carry up to around 120, approximately, total missiles in its vertical launch cells. It has 60 in the front, or 61, and then 60 in the back. I think a few of them are taken up with electronics, but it's somewhere in the vicinity of 200. So the rest of them are probably filled with either more Tomahawks or surface-to-air missiles, which are to defend the ship and, of course, its counterparts. the carrier and the other ships in the battle group that it is protecting. Now, something that makes me think they maybe made this up for the movie, despite the fact this is actually pretty accurate and pretty good. They got a salvo number on there. Correct nomenclature for the missiles is this: CG-49. CG-49 was an earlier Aegis cruiser. It was one of the first 5. In fact, it was USS Vincennes, which you may have heard of because it was the one that accidentally shot down an Iranian airliner in I think it was 88. And it is now one of the earlier ones. It had the older arm launchers. Ships used to have, from when missiles first became the primary armament of ships up until I believe the early 1980s. Ships did not have vertical launches. A vertical launch cell looks like exactly what it is. It's a big bunch of cells that are like basically rectangles down into the deck, and they're arranged in a grid, and the missiles sit on their tails and come up out of them and then go towards the target. The older ones had an arm launcher, which kind of looked like a turret, except it didn't look like a gun turret. It looked like a rotating thing, and then it had either one in the center or a double pair of launch rails on there. And what it would do is it would swing back into position and tilt the rails up, and the missiles would slide out of the magazine, slide up the rails, and then the launcher would aim the missiles straight at the target, and then it would launch them. And most ships that had these had one in the front, one in the back. So the most you were really going to launch at a time was 4. The vertical launcher is much, much better. The other thing is the vertical launcher does not have any moving parts, really. Well, other than the lid of the cell. It just pops open and the missile fires out. That arm launcher with all that swinging and loading and stuff like that, that could break down. And it could break down at the worst possible time, right in the middle of combat. So not having that is important. So why is this? I've been going on about this for a little bit. The reason all this is important is that these first 5 Aegis cruisers, Ticonderoga, Vincennes, and then 3 others, which I can't remember what the other names of the other ones were. I think Yorktown was one of them. They were retired a long time ago. Some of them were used as target ships or they were sent to the scrappers. But they got rid of the first 5 much earlier. That ship has been decommissioned for quite some years now. But CG-49 should not be there. Now looking at the CVN-71, this is USS Theodore Roosevelt. This is definitely still a thing. This ship was, I believe, commissioned in 1986, so it's starting to get up there as well, although carriers are generally expected to serve about 50 years. And then you have SSN-21. This is USS Seawolf. This could also launch Tomahawks. Oh, and then we've got one over here. This might be DDG-72 or CG-72. So that could be a destroyer or a cruiser over there. But this is a proper battle group. Now, part of the reason I also talked so much about the cruisers is going to become clear at the end. Because remember that these cruisers are here. This is something that was never talked about in the original Top Gun, was the carrier's escorts. They acted like the only thing protecting the carrier was these 2 Tomcats. And that's never the case. There have always been escorts. So let's just remember that these ships are here and that they have these missile launchers, because this is going to be an important point later on. Okay, so now we're going towards the target. Now, as we're flying up the canyon here.
More SAMs, 3 o'clock high!
Okay, he's calling out the SAMs. Okay, let's take a look at this. Now, this surface-to-air missile here is the S-125 in the Russian nomenclature, Neva Petrocha. The NATO nomenclature is SA-3, SA-3 GOA, G-O-A. And this was a mobile surface-to-air missile system. It was designed back at the same time as what we called the I think it was the SA-1 and the SA-2 was the big long-range one. Basically, it's a Vietnam-era SAM. But anyhow, you can see here the missile. It has this quadruple launcher. It's a very much this is kind of the kind of weapon that you'd see would G.I. Joe weapons would be based on. A lot of missiles sticking up in the air that look really cool. It's not a very long-ranged weapon, but the thing is, let's see. Does it tell us anything about this? Doesn't really give us a Mach 3 to 3.5. It's low altitude. I guess it is more modern than the SA-2, although not by much. so it was more resistant to jamming than the SA-2, which is the big. This is the SA-2. Oh no, not that one. That the Vietnamese used a lot. You see, they've got a lot. Now they've got them, I think, way too close together. Now this is another thing: is you've got another cruiser there. I don't know why you didn't also suppress the SAMs with these. Then you could send the F-18s in without even worrying about the SAMs. Now it would have. Now you could say, well, it would have alerted the enemy, but they were already alerted because their airfield got blown up.
Tomahawk impact in 3.
Okay.
2. Impact. Enemy runway is destroyed.
They know we're coming now.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, they know we're coming now. We've blown up their runways. Now, for what they want to do, that's actually not bad. Suppressing the airfield by blowing up the runways is fine. However, you've not destroyed the runway. You've damaged the runway. You've probably put it out of action for some time, and that's all you need to do, because you only need to suppress it long enough for the F-18s to get in, do their job, and get out. And if everything were to go to plan, that would be 10 to 15 minutes probably total. If you want to put an airfield out of action, you don't really bother attacking the runways. Runways are just asphalt in the ground, and you can repair the runway pretty quickly by just bulldozing all the debris back into the hole and then putting asphalt over it. It doesn't take a high skill level. It doesn't take a lot of heavy equipment. Now, it's not ideal. If you want to land really heavy aircraft on that, you might need to do more sophisticated work. But for fighter jets, which are pretty light and easy on a runway, you can fix it pretty quick. Things like fuel dumps, repairs, the hangars that contain the actual aircraft, if they aren't hardened bunkers, those are much more tempting targets for Tomahawks normally. And that's how we would attack an airfield like in, say, Syria, which I think we did 6-7 years ago. Maybe a little more than that now. Let's go on to the stealing the Tomcat, because I do think this is cool. Okay. Lots of explosions, lots of damage to the runway, fire trucks, but notice that they didn't hit the hangars. They hit the runways. And everybody's ignoring the jets because
We don't even know if that bag of ass can fly.
because there's no runway. No usable runway. Okay.
There's more over there.
Yeah, they're sneaking on there. This is a good move. Okay, now let's take a look at this. What's he gonna do? Okay, he's gonna check out this generator cart.
Once I give you the signal for air, you're gonna flip this switch until the needle gets to 120. When the engine starts, you gotta pull out the pins and disconnect everything. You understand?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's giving him the procedure. He remembers how it works. Probably the standard cart that we sold him along with the F-14s. I kind of like this also because it's showing some of the more technical, not just Maverick being a cool pilot, but also being technically proficient. And, you know, he remembers how the F-14 works. If Rooster was doing this by himself, he couldn't do it because he doesn't have this experience. Okay, so let's move on a little bit here. Okay, looks like the starter cart's working good. Okay. Okay, Rooster's stowing the ladder for him.
It's been a minute. Huh, Mav?
Yeah, it's okay. Probably I haven't flown one in quite a few years, so it's starting to get a little hard to remember a few things. I like that. I like this a lot here. If you notice that switch there, that's the engine crank switch. I just think it's cool to see him hit the left engine crank, then right engine crank, you know, because you can kind of see it all coming back to him there, as he's remembering how the F-14 works. So, all right, we're gonna come out of the tank, out of the hangar, rotate onto the runway.
Both runways are cratered. How are we gonna get the museum piece in the air?
Okay, now you're going to bring the wings out to generate more lift.
Why are the wings coming out, Matt?
He would know that. He's a pilot. He knows why you extend the wings. That's a silly question. They've got, looks like, I think it's fuel tanks at the end of the taxiway for some reason.
Matt, this is a taxiway, not a runway. This is a very short taxiway, Matt.
Okay, this is another problem with blowing up the runways. You have taxiways. And at military airfields, it does occur to the people that design them that somebody might try to blow up their runway. So they do make the taxiway essentially as an alternate runway. Now, you don't normally take off and land on it, but even on civilian airports, people have done it, sometimes by mistake. Harrison Ford, I think, accidentally landed on a taxiway flying his plane a year or two ago, if I recall right. So this is not that unrealistic. And actually, I don't know why they would put the fuel tanks there, because you would want the taxiway to be available as an alternate runway, and you wouldn't want to build an obstacle at the end of it. So anyhow, he's going to take off here and get this crate in the air.
He's on our nose. Damn it! We're out of ammo. Smoke in the air! Rooster flares! That was close! We're out of flares, Mav!
Okay. Now, let's talk about this a little bit. This guy's going to come back.
More of this! We can't outrun this guy. We got to eject. What? We need altitude.
No, actually, you don't have to eject. The carrier already knows where you are, and it has a whole ton of F-18s on board. And probably those F-35s that you couldn't use because of the GPS. Well, you can use them just fine out here over the ocean to fight that Su-57. Or, even better, you may remember those ships. Remember I told you, remember about the ships with their missiles? Well, guess what? Each one of those ships has dozens and dozens of surface-to-air missiles. And on top of that, it has a really, really, really powerful radar called, I believe, the SPY-1, the Aegis radar. It is much more powerful than anything a plane has. And even though the Su-57 has stealth characteristics, it can probably be picked up at range. Now, and also the E-2 could pick it up at range. We saw it do it earlier. Now, in real life, could the E-2 pick it up? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know what the range, what aspect, quite what how that math would work out. But in the movie, we already established that the Su-57 can be seen just fine by the E-2's radar. So they're probably already within the surface-to-air missile envelope of the ship, because the SM-3 and 2 and 3 and SM-6 missiles that the cruisers would carry have ranges of hundreds of miles. In fact, the SM-3, which is actually the ballistic missile defense version, can reach up and hit satellites in space. Shooting down this Su-57, this one enemy jet, is not a big challenge for the cruisers or destroyers protecting the carrier. And that's probably actually what you want to do here, is run straight toward. They already know the F-14 is not hostile. Just lure the Su-57 into the surface-to-air missile envelope of the ships. Now, some people say, well, you can't talk to the ship yet because the radio's not working. What if they're mistaken for it? Well, you know what? You're already in the envelope yourself, and they haven't fired at you, so you're pretty safe. Getting even closer is not likely to trigger that. So I just wanted to go over that. That really, I don't know why they didn't do that, other than it would be maybe a little anticlimactic to watch the last enemy fighter get shot down by a cruiser. Hangman's going to land. Okay.
Maverick is downwind. No front landing gear, no tail hook. Pull the cable and raise the barricade.
Foul deck! Foul deck! Now raise the barricade!
Now, I really, really like that scene. Where he's calling out, what he needs, and then he's telling him, and you get to see the enlisted deck crew doing its thing. Of they're going to get ready for an emergency. The barricade, that's really how that thing is made out of Kevlar, and they're going to try to get this airplane stopped when it's on the deck, and rescue the pilots. This is what would really happen in real carrier operations if they had to land this plane this way. And he can't eject. We've already established the ejection doesn't work, so they're going to have no choice. All right, he's coming around here. Let's skip ahead here. Here he comes. Man, internet is That's a good thing. Okay. Yeah, that's gonna be a rough one. That's gonna be a rough one. It's not like a normal landing. Okay, and then you're going to have your firefighters come up, because you don't. I mean, that plane, you don't know about the fuel, if it's leaking. It's a damaged aircraft. It's been hit by several cannon rounds. You don't want to take any chances. So the first thing you're going to do is get up there and deliver your fire suppression and try to get the pilots out of that airplane. And probably, I would imagine what they do is just shove the thing over the side. I think that's what they did with damaged airplanes back in World War II and probably in Vietnam in a lot of cases. Is if they were badly damaged and they were a serious threat to the ship, you just shove the thing right over the side in the ocean. Kind of a shame for that to happen to the F-14, but you're not going to risk the entire carrier with that thing on the deck, because he's not out of fuel. That thing's a potential bomb. It could be very dangerous. So anyhow, that's some of the aspects of Top Gun 2 Maverick that I think maybe the average person might not be aware of, that I wanted to kind of go over. That is going to be kind of the emphasis for the Military Mondays, looking in some tidbits out of these movies and pulling out some aspects of them and seeing how realistic they are. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, comment down below. If there's any particular movies or other forms of entertainment you really want me to look at, please let me know. And other than that, I will see you next time. And also, ring the notifications bell for more great content from Wilderness Wargaming. And we'll see you back here very soon. Bye-bye.